Muses. Welcome to Miss Martin Muses, where we muse upon what makes me laugh, makes me cry, makes me happy, makes me sad, or just really ticks me off. Today I'm going to talk about all of those emotions because that is what books bring to you. They take you to another world and they can make you cry, they can make you happy, they can make you mad. But in general, when you have a good book and you're reading it and you spend a good hour a day, you're happy. Your day will be happier. So we're going to be sharing today, me and Steve Kenobi. We're going to be sharing some of the books we're reading, and of course, we want you to share so that we can maybe get suggestions because there's lots and lots of good fiction. And I do see you all in the chat. But before we do, I'm going to introduce all the way from the future, and from a much colder climate. It is the one, the only, the Viking himself, Steve.
Hi, and it's not cold. However, the leaves are starting to fall from the trees, so fall is around the corner, and that's my favorite season anyway. So great.
Yay! Well, that's good to hear. Okay, well, good to hear that the future is not so bad, or at least the weather in the future is not so bad. Though I might question your definition of not cold. But that's okay. We are very tolerant here at Miss Martin Muses. And look who it is also from the future. It is Archer Collin already giving us a suggestion. I'm going to start this. We're going to get back to this. Corey Cochran, hello. And Louise Sparrow. Always good to see you. Thank you, everyone here and everyone that will be watching in the replay. So Archer Collins says, currently the Honor Harrington series by David Weber. Again, okay, you really like those. Have you read those, Steek?
No, but people have told me to read them. They're sci-fi novels with a female protagonist who has an eye patch, I think.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we endorse eye patches here at Miss Martin Muses. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think I've seen his books on the shelves in the thrift stores that I like to haunt and frequent. Okay, so that's our first suggestion. So people, Honor Harrington series by David Weber. Give them a look. And I'm going to start with a series I just finally started. And I know Steve has read these several times. I finally started the Wheel of Time series, and I have finished The Eye of the World and I'm currently reading The Great Hunt. These books so far are fantastic. When I started The Eye of the World, I read the first 100 pages immediately. And when I finished it, I went straight to the second book and read at least 50 pages before I went to bed. I just couldn't get enough of it. So, Steve, you've read this several times.
Yeah, it's 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Especially the first 5 are amazing.
Yeah. And what Robert Jordan was able to achieve, he wrote 14 books. Well, sort of wrote 14 books. The last 3 were written using his notes and his what he left behind, because he sadly left us too soon with a tragic illness, and 1 prequel.
Yeah, 1 out of 3 prequels were finished. But it was supposed to be 3 standalone prequels, so it did no harm that 2 weren't released, right? It definitely would have been just extras, but yeah. And I think Brandon Sanderson got over 6,000 pages of notes
Yeah.
to work with, and I believe the final few pages in the final book was written by Robert Jordan.
Oh, dagnabbit. Louis Sparrow says, I read Wheel of Time like that up to book 9. I stopped when I had to wait for book 10 and only started again last year. Oh, wow.
Yeah, people... that happened. And I remember people were basically, if you got to book 10 or something and it wasn't out, you, well, a lot of the fans would just reread book 1 through 9 while waiting for book 10. It was absolutely a thing, which is, it shows what a great writer he was, right?
Yes. I people like me are in a way lucky because we can just read it straight through. We don't have to wait.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I always thought the wait was worth it
Mhm.
because you were waiting for something you really wanted.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people are waiting for something that they, might kind of like.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we know this is gonna suck, but maybe it'll be okay. So I'll wait for this casually. Well, back then it was like I can't wait for the next one. It has to arrive soon, right?
Yeah. Well, this just brings me back to the Harry Potter books. How I was one of those that would wait in those lines at the bookstores till midnight so I could get it immediately and then read it all night.
Yeah,
That
I was never a Harry Potter fan. I didn't get on that train basically.
uh-huh.
Uh, but I saw people all over the place doing what you did. Standing in line waiting to make sure they got the next book when it came out.
Uh-huh.
So it was absolutely a thing. And again, J.K. Rowling's a fantastic writer.
Yeah. Amazing. They were also parties, and that's what was also fun because there were games and you would meet people. There's another set of books I actually did that for too, but you might be completely ashamed of me. The Twilight books. I really I did. I w- I will admit it. I waited for the final one for Breaking Dawn. Me and a friend stayed at midnight for that too.
You know what's kind of fun about the time Harry Potter came out?
Hmm.
You had people burning the books and telling, being on TV and saying, yeah, kids shouldn't read this because they'll start turning, demonic and using witchcraft, right? That was
Uh-huh.
the thing too. But nowadays, you get piled on if you don't identify as a witch or something. So it's completely switched.
Yeah. And what really strikes me, having been around some Christians, my church tended to be a little, let's say, open minded. They just don't like to anymore come out on a book, but you did have some individuals who acted like you were a bad Christian if you read them, which of course I gave zero clucks about. But ironically, now people are looking back at Harry Potter or like the good old days, even those kind of Christians that would be
Yeah,
against it.
yeah, and there was another book as well where the priests were the villains. The Golden Compass. That one
Ah,
got piled on a bit, and the movie. They made a movie. It was supposed to be a trilogy, but they had to stop because of the pylon by
yeah.
the
Well,
you know
because of the a lot of that, people didn't go see it. It flopped.
yeah,
Too.
and there were boycotts. There were all kinds of stuff. People raising hell outside the cinemas. So we had cancel culture back then too, but it was the other side doing it.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? I don't like cancel culture. Now, I did have personal feelings about the Golden Compass, so I didn't go see it and I didn't read it, and I have no. That's just not entertaining for me. But I'm not going to be one to ever stop it because, as we all know, where does it stop?
Yep.
And I think it's very interesting that J.K. Rowling used to be the champion of, let's just say, more leftist people, and now they're totally
Yeah.
witch
Well,
hunting her,
yeah.
ironically.
They eat their own always, which is
Hmm.
why you should never apologize to them. Look what happened to Alice Cooper.
Yeah,
He had a go at them, and they wanted him to apologize. He said no. What
yeah,
happened? Nothing.
yep, darn right. Hello, Christiane. Thank you for being here. And yes, remembering each of these. And Archer Collin does had a follow up about the Weber series. He says it's like Horatio Hornblower in space at about the French Revolution. That sounds kind of badass.
Yeah. Hornblower is fantastic. Have
Oh,
you seen Hornblower?
I saw the TV series. I haven't read the books. Eventually, I want to do that.
If you well, you could double up with the Sharp series because that's basically Hornblower on land during the same war.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, do them together. And of course, Sean Bean was amazing. Yeah, Louise Sparrow said she did read his Dark Materials. I didn't like book through, so I still wouldn't say I'm a fan. Yeah, but just like anything else, if you want to read it, read it. That's great because even books that maybe I don't like, and it's you're personally allowed to not like or not be entertained by something. There was quality to those books. They weren't written by crap writers,
No,
and now we see otherwise. The Cold Boot is here. Hello. Hello, hey there. Currently reading Sequest the novel, which is a novelization of the pilot episode, which I'm also going through the TV series on Blu-ray, which looks fantastic. There's two other novels too. I did not know they had a novel series. I did watch it on television when it came out. I was in college at the time. I had some problems with it because I think they were trying they were their ratings weren't as good as they wanted to be, so they did like kind of a reboot in season 2 or 3. And I was like, okay, but because I really liked season 1. Was starring the dude from Jaws. He was an amazing captain.
I think they had to they had to do something about that show because one of the actresses got pregnant.
Oh,
So they couldn't have the audience sitting there guessing which of the characters on the show knocked her up. You know,
oh,
because none of
and
them had done it. It was just she was pregnant in real life.
okay, yeah, and sometimes that can be a problem. Thank you. I didn't realize that, but yes, it I might actually read some of it because the premise is really cool. Because in the commercials, when they were saying we've explored space, but we haven't explored the sea, and it's true. Even today, we haven't really explored the sea, and it is very vast. Not as big as space, obviously, but to us, it absolutely is foreign and a very dangerous place, as we saw with the Titanic situation a few months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
And
they basically diversity hired people to death. That's
oh,
what happened.
it's so sad. So sad. The only positive on that is the evidence is it was very instantaneous. But this whole idea of taking submarines and exploring, and one of the books I recommended on the last stream we did like this was what's his name? You know, the dude who he actually got stuck under the Titanic, and he's also been in space, and he did all those videos.
Richard Garriott.
Thank you, Richard Garriott's book. Ah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So read his book all about that as well. Yeah, and Archer Cohn says Weber openly credits Hornblower and has the main character's initials are HH. Oh, that's amazing. And it is Wayne J. Heffelsinger the second. I'm a new viewer. Well, thank you for being here.
That is one awesome name.
Yeah.
Seriously. That is the name of someone who drinks tea.
Darn right. And Earl Grey,
Oh, yes.
hot. I seen you mentioned Brandon Sanderson. Did you read his Stormlight Archive series? The books are long, but I like them. Steve, have you read them?
No, but I think I have two of them. I just haven't gotten around to reading them. I read Mistborn, though,
Mm-hmm.
which is a trilogy. But yeah, I used to buy so many books just, in case I need them, right?
Yeah,
So it was a steady stream of books coming in for probably a decade, you know?
yeah.
So, yeah, I think I have about 1,000 fantasy books,
Oh, that's
all in all.
amazing.
But I'm glad I did because the cost has gone up, especially the shipping. So if I were to buy the same amount of books today, I probably would have paid two-thirds more than I did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I can tell you this, that I haunt every secondhand bookstore and eBay. They're starting to disappear and the prices are going up because I think a lot of people are picking up these books, which is a good thing, but it can also be an not so good thing for your pocketbook. Go out and buy them now. Eventually, I will read the Mistborn series, trilogy. I have been told
The
to.
Mistborn series is being turned into a TV show or three movies. Sanderson is involved with it. It's been on I wouldn't say development hell, but it's on hiatus, because of a strike, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, sometimes that might be a good thing. Meteor Advocate Shimon says, I'm reading a Python programming book. Hey, it counts. Yes. And look, there's an elf in the house. There is an elf in the house reading new Sherlock Holmes mystery. Oh, girl, Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, she reads a lot of crime and mystery books.
Yes. Sherlock Holmes is the original, but Agatha Christie is the queen.
Yeah, I would say so. Agatha Christie is top dog, with Arthur Conan Doyle's a little bit behind.
Hmm. Yeah. But there wouldn't have been one without the other.
Yeah,
Melvin Deeply says the Stormlight archive is good, but as yet still unfinished, I think. But good. Oh, okay. Stormlight archive. And Wayne saying thank you for the kind coffee, but I'm more of a coffee drinker than tea.
I don't believe you. That there is a tea drinker's name.
You heard it here first. Steve would know. He lives in Downton Abbey.
I'm picturing Wayne sitting in a garden, finely dressed, in a costly chair, drinking tea and eating scones.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that because
No, he's
any
doing everything right.
any book reader worth their salt does that. And Baldo, thank you. He says he's going to watch it on the replay. I do appreciate that. And everyone's saying hello to Lady T. We all love Lady Terry T, Lady Toriel here at Miss Martin Muses. Archer Collins says, way back when I used to buy printed books, I always preferred U.S. prints of sci-fi fantasy because the covers were so much better. Oh, interesting.
That happened with fantasy books as well, eventually.
Huh.
In the mid 2000s, there was like a switch. They started doing more and more English covers and US covers. And I would always get the English ones because I would buy from the UK Amazon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the US covers are way better. I mean, you could look at the Wheel of Time because the uh, the European covers were basically, they have the Aes Sedai symbol on a
Mm-hmm.
black background, and it's a Wheel of Time book 12 or something. While the US ones had covers like the one you're showing,
Yes.
which is why I've been collecting the original covers actually.
Yes.
And yeah,
And I put this together with the Robert Jordan Wheel of Time because, of course, this is the prequel he was able to complete before his passing.
yeah, this one is about Moraine and Lan and how they meet and discover some things.
Yeah.
Um, the second one was supposed to be about Tam, Rand's adopted father, and his
Oh,
backstory. And the third one, I think it was to be about one of the Aes Sedai's. Can't remember.
oh, I would have loved that book about Tam. I'm only the second book, but I love him so far, and so much we know that went down. Let me put it that way. So yes,
The TV show actually did the casting of him spot on. It's
yeah,
the only thing they did well.
yes. Well, I
It,
still
it,
think that not Rebecca Ferguson, Rosamund Pike was a good choice for Moraine. They just made
it's
her
just
look
too tall. Moraine is supposed to be tiny.
well, yeah, but compared to like what they did to Loyal,
Yeah,
yeah, too tall. So right, they did
yeah.
awful.
They had the actor who played Roose Bolton on on Game of Thrones is playing Tam.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I haven't seen the show, and I've been told not even to think about looking too much at it because it's so out of order
Yeah, they have
that
stuff from book 4 and some stuff from book 6, I believe, in season 1.
ugh,
So the thing is, that event is caused by something which leads to something, and they just nullified that both ways.
huh. Well, that's just ridiculous, and why probably it's not popular. You have this basically the American Tolkien from what I've been told from you and in my research. So I've read his other books, not the Wheel of Time yet, or so far. He is so good with his world building, and it would have been instant money. They would have been printing money if they'd have done a good adaptation of this.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably um, Robert Jordan's strength is his world building because
Hmm.
he makes it come alive from page 1.
Yeah, I loved it. Like I told you, I couldn't stand myself. I was doing this. Okay, apparently Laurie R. King has good Sherlock Holmes books. Oh, okay. So Lady Toriel's telling us they're writing, not the Arthur Conan Doyle ones. That's what you meant by new ones. Well, that can be fun. That can be fun. I'll give you that. And you know, I would take the advice of Lady Toriel anytime about her suggestion. Now we're going to move on to the Raymond Feist books. We in our book club read Magician Apprentice and Magician Master. So these are here as well as the graphic novel. This is where I am. I'm in flight, not Flight of the Nighthawks, the book after Flight of the Nighthawks. So this is what I've been reading in the last 6 months or so. And of course, you, Stieg, are the one that got me into it, the Magician. Tell me a little bit about Magician.
Well, it's about a magician. Well,
Yeah,
it's in my opinion, magician, which is actually magician apprentice and master in one book.
yeah.
Probably the best standalone fantasy novel I've ever read, and I think
Hmm.
I'll die on that hill. But so you can read magician and then stop
Yeah,
because it concludes the story perfectly. But then the the characters' lives carry on, right? And you get more and more books, and it starts to tie into some big, almost cosmic issues. So it grows and grows and grows. And with Feist, though, I'd say he's a little bit almost the opposite of Robert Jordan because Feist's strength is the characters. Because
ah,
he's not that heavy on world building as Robert Jordan is. His world is great, but Robert Jordan's world is more fleshed out.
yeah, I would agree. Well, I've told you over and over again, he has the talent of making me fall in love with each and every one of his characters. I'm always like, I don't know if I'm going to like this new person. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, he's my boy. I want to adopt him. Yeah, I just love them so much. So wait,
Speaking of old persons that we like, Tommy is in the
I
chat.
was going to say greetings. Hello, Tommy. He's not that old.
He's
Actually, I
older
don't.
than me. That means old.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say,
It,
oh.
it, it only counts with him. Don't worry.
Oh, I was about ready to say, speak for yourself, sir. Yes. So please, if you have not read these, Steek said, if you can stop on Magician Master. That's how it's usually sold
Yeah,
nowadays. And or if you want to continue with the next two books, they make up a trilogy. That also is a complete story, so you can stop there.
yeah. You can actually stop after each trilogy.
Yes.
Um,
Now, of course, I have been going through all of them. I just love them, and I love the characters. Of so far, we're more than 100 years through the story, so of course, many beloved characters will pass away.
yeah, I guess who gets blamed for it?
I know Steve gets blamed every time it happens.
Yeah, I've been reading a Feist book as well. I read Jimmy the Hand, which is a spin-off standalone book about Jimmy, and this one starts right when we see him last in Magician.
My
So
boy.
he goes off on a little adventure, and I'd give that book a 7 out of 10. You know, it's a standalone little adventure book. It's not a masterpiece. And
Mhm.
it's not supposed to be either. But it was good fun, and in my opinion, a 7 out of 10 is rereadable.
Yeah. Well, I love this boy more than life itself. Oh, he's just my boy. Um, let me see just a minute here. Steek, would you mind taking over for a minute? I have a phone call that I have to take.
Okay, I'll chat with the chat.
Okay. Yes, and let me see. Let me bring up if okay. Oh, look, talk about here's Abercrombie. So
Yeah,
just a
remember
minute.
to mute
Sorry about
yourself.
this.
Okay, Archer Collin asking me if I ever read the Chronicles of Amber. No, but I think my dad has those books. I think it's like, is there three of them? I don't know. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Lady Toriel saying Jimmy the Hand was great. Yes, I would agree. It was a nice little side story with, I guess, an occult mystery going on in the countryside. So that was, yeah. It actually felt like a TV show episode, almost like a problem of the week TV show episode, like a filler, I guess. Let's see. Archer Collins has seen a few Sherlock Holmes books set in the Cthulhu universe. That sounds like it fits with the time, doesn't it? Because the Cthulhu stuff is like in the 1930s and 1920s, usually, which is when Sherlock Holmes is around. So, a good mix. Let's see what else. Archer Collins says he's too old and can't remember all the books or authors he's read. I'm starting to get that problem myself. It's not so much age; it's more like the volume, the sheer volume of books. And I think you can just retain a certain amount of information before it becomes, it melds together. And if you read a book 20 years ago, you'll remember just the main events in that book, right? But not all the details. And yeah. Oh, more like 10 books by now. I did not know that. I think my dad has three of them. So uh, all of them are rather short. Hmm. I think I might confuse those books with something else, because the ones I saw my dad had was thick. But it could be their omnibuses, like 3 in 1 or something. Don't know. Tommy saying hello to Lady T and getting a high back. Well, that's good. What have you been reading, Tommy? Let's see what else. Scrolling up. Melvin Deeply is missing old style book covers. You know what? I could not agree more. I did a stream with Lady Gravemaster on the topic where we showcased new editions of books and compared them to the originals. And we also showcased the new novels. And, they all look the same. It's lacy Photoshop stuff. Usually someone standing in front of mist, some lady standing in front of mist in some, misty streets or something. Or in the case of the new releases of older books, you'll have really shit covers. It's like someone holding it, keys, or it's you know, a table with a map and a chess piece on it, or a table with a candle and a dagger sticking out of a map.
Ah. Oh boy, you're talking about covers with keys. You're going to summon Lady Greymaster.
Yeah, and Tommy is saying he's not reading anything. He's too busy working on dioramas. And
Oh,
I'll tell you something. I saw Tommy make, I think it was a brick wall diorama that he did for some Ninja Turtle stuff.
uh huh.
The guy has skills. It looked great.
Sweet.
Yeah, he knows
Well,
what he's doing.
well, if you want to see that and more, Tommy, please feel free to share your YouTube channel in the chat so people can go over and have a look at it. All right. So I'm assuming you talked about Joe Abercrombie and the first law.
No, no, I gapped with the.
Oh, that was the
Uh,
chat. Oh, okay, that's fine.
yeah,
I had to go spend a whole bunch of money. That's why I had to take it because we needed to go through. Well, rather, someone else had to spend a whole bunch of money because it wasn't my fault. It was my neighbor's fault, my flooded kitchen. But yeah, so good to see everybody here and talking about books. So tell us a little bit about uh, the Joe Abercrombie. I just brought up the First Law trilogy, but I haven't read actually any of his stuff. Well, for one thing, he's a Brit, from what I understand. He's rather young. He's not very old.
I think he's 48.
48.
Yeah, he's been writing since 2006.
Dang.
And in my opinion, when it comes to new fantasy writers, and I'm putting new in quotation marks though, because if you started in 26, you're not really that new anymore.
Yeah.
But he is the best of the new,
Ooh.
easily.
Oh, high praise indeed.
Yeah, the first Law trilogy is kind of. It's almost like he's having a go at Tolkien and fantasy tropes, right? Or the fantasy tropes that sprung out from
Oh,
Tolkien. It's not like he's mocking it or anything. He's just twisting it around.
oh, okay. Because part of me is like,
Yeah.
them's fighting words. Because I'm always like, I know that these writers can be different and have their own visions, but I always feel like they should be pitted against each other.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the love interest is a bit of a bitch and she drinks too much,
Oh no.
and you have the great swordmaster hero,
Uh-huh.
is not a swordmaster. He won because someone cheated, and the guy is also a piece of shit. So
Ah.
he's not the heroic Aragorn or anything like that whatsoever.
Ooh. Well, I know that you've read me a few passages or highlighted some of them. And
Yeah,
it's some messed up stuff in there.
it's messed up stuff, and not a single character in it is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, 75% of them have psychotic traits.
Oh.
And it's insanely refreshing, and like Lady T said, it's very graphic, yes, but it's not sexually graphic or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know,
It's adult.
it's
It's adult material of the best kind.
yeah. I think they call the genre. This is because of Abercrombie. Actually, it's called grimdark.
Oh, that is
Yeah,
interesting.
grim and dark. It's yeah, he caused it. So I've started rereading this trilogy, which is the first one, and I finished book one yesterday, and
Mhm.
I'd give it a 10 out of 10. I'm looking forward to rereading book two and three and stuff like that. I did finish his newest trilogy earlier this year, which is called The Age of Madness. It actually has a go at cancel culture in it.
Ooh. Wow. Well, that's always good. And Belmont Deep is saying best served cold, the heroes, the Red Country.
Yeah, he got them all in the correct order.
Yay.
And in between there, you can read a book called Sharp Ends, which has a story with short stories popping up in between them, and in between the chapters. So it's like a little novel with a lot of short stories about the original characters and what have you in between.
Huh. Okay. Grimdark is a description. I usually connect it to the. Is that Warcraft?
Warhammer.
Warhammer. Sorry. Oh my gosh.
Well, you know, close enough.
Yeah. I know what I know, and what I don't know, I don't know. Yeah. Well, excellent. Sounds like a lot of people like Abercrombie in the
Yeah.
first trilogy,
Oh,
and if he's
Melvin, in the chat, if you haven't heard of this, Best Served Cold is being turned into I think it's a movie. I think HBO is doing it, and they've cast Rebecca Ferguson in the lead. So they actually cast a redhead to play a redhead.
yay, and
It's weird that they're picking that one though, because they should have done the first Law trilogy first, because characters in it are in Best Served Cold as well. So it's yeah,
yeah,
but
I
it has
well,
a female lead, so that's probably why they did it.
I was about ready to say that's one way to be faithful while still fulfilling all of their quotas. Oh, Lady T has to leave us. Time for work. Well, thank you for coming in. Always great to see you. And we have a discussion about some royals that we need to get to. And I know that Ancient One is beside himself with the idea of us having tea. Melvin Nibley says best served cold would make a great film if they do it right.
Yes, I think the first Law trilogy though would be better as uh, as a TV series, and then you can do the standalone books, which are Best Served Cold, The Heroes, and Red Country as movies, and then do the next trilogy as a series again. In my opinion.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. This is a situation where I am kind of hopeful for an adaptation because I think it's a reasonable hope that they might
Yes,
and very well could do it correctly.
and
Yeah.
Abercrombie is part of the writing
The
team.
Feist adaptation. Oh, well, there you go. And from what I understand, he doesn't F around. Like you said, he doesn't like cancel culture. And that's good news. And the Feist show, I have no faith in that they're developing because it has story group people and one of the writers of Solo in it.
Yeah, it's
But
it's it's the train wreck in the making. I mean, it has Kiri Hart from the Star Wars Story Group.
mhm,
Yeah,
yeah.
um,
However, the writer's strike has come in to save us on that.
yeah,
Yeah, and I've of course read these several times. Read them since I was a kid, and many people have. The Narnia series. I just got done rereading them because I was on Untamed Mando's channel. She was doing it on her Literary Soul Sisters series. My favorite is, well, I like The Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe, but I really like The Magician's Nephew. And so these were the ones that I've actually reread. Uh, and you've read Narnia series.
I've read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe,
Oh, okay.
and I've seen the BBC mini series that dealt with four of the books, I think, and I've seen the movies. And you know the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe cover you have up. That one has one of the problems with marketing today. A major motion picture sticker thing. It's not
Mm-hmm.
even a sticker; it's printed on, which is
Yeah, so you
something they've
can't
been
take it
doing
off.
for the last 15 years or something. It's usually they'll in most cases they have a TV show or something that just uses characters from the books, It has nothing to do with the story in the book, and they stick it on the covers. But
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, read the book and then watch the TV show. They're just the same. No, they're not.
Mm-mm.
I mean, look at The Witcher. It doesn't have a damn thing to do with the books at all, except for a couple of the filler episodes, which dealt with side or rather short stories. But the main story is destroyed.
Yeah, from what I understand, I saw the first season and watched half of the second. That there were moments in the first season, and there was one of the short stories in the second season, which was pretty faithful. But yeah, yeah, I misunderstood. I remember you said that you'd watched the BBC series, and that even though the the special effects are not the best, that they do a good job with it.
Yeah, in my opinion, the costumes, and you could tell it's a guy dressed as a beaver, right?
Uh-huh.
It's not even done well, but
Yeah.
the show has a hell of a lot of heart. You can tell right away,
Hmm.
and I'll give them a lot of leeway for that.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I've always talked about the Jane Eyre version with Timothy Dalton, which looks like it was filmed in their living room with an old camera, and it's still the best version because the acting and the writing is so good. And yeah, Wayne Health, I can't say that. You're the coolest name ever. Says he should have been left as a book series. Yeah, I think it's very hard to adapt. It's always hard to adapt these things unless they're cartoons, in my opinion. Like I thought the cartoon was cute, and that's what I watched as a kid. I think that's easiest.
Yeah, this is accurate. Theatrical. That's a good way to describe it.
Ah,
It looks like the costumes they would wear in theater.
that and they have so many theater actors too. That makes complete sense, absolutely, and that's why I love
Yeah.
them. I still rewatch them. I'm rewatching a whole bunch of '80s stuff right now.
The theme music is amazing.
Okay, well you heard it here first, and so wow, we have so many recommendations now. This is probably one of my favorite books of all time, The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. This is such an amazing story of revenge, and the way he gets revenge, oh my gosh, it is amazing. He goes to the dark side like you wouldn't believe it to get his revenge, but of course redeems himself when he realizes he's becoming the very thing that he hates. um, such a good character study, and none of the movies that I have seen so far have done it justice, except with the exception of the Richard Chamberlain version, which is the most faithful. But still, they had to change things because they only made it a 2 hour. But it is my dream one day for someone to just film it right, do a big ass long miniseries, because it's dark what he does to get revenge on some of the people.
I have
And
a trivia question for you.
uh-oh, go ahead.
Which character in pop culture calls himself the Count of Monte Fisto?
Thank you, Steve. Okay, who?
It's Apollo Creed.
Oh,
It's one of his nicknames
I'm so
because he's a
sorry.
boxer.
I'm so sorry. I my mind immediately went to, oh no.
Good grief, madam. Shame. Boo.
Oh no. Should Harry Potter be live action or animated TV show? Harry Potter's, my opinion, is just fine as it was. Though I wasn't crazy about the Half Blood Prince adaptation, especially. It's still, they did fine with it. We were in an era where we had the right special effects and that they were able to keep all the cast, only changing Dumbledore because of the passing of Richard Harris. So I think they need to just leave it as is. They don't need to readapt it as a cartoon. I just don't think I
Ideally, they would do a long TV show, one season per book. In a perfect world, and they do perfect casting and all that, but it's not going to happen.
well that's what they're planning on though.
yeah, it's gonna be diversity all over the place.
Well, yeah, and they're probably even going to change things.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So okay. Sorry if I misunderstood that. That is yes. Yep.
Dumbledore is gonna be a black lesbian or something.
Oh dear. Mentioning I Claudius, and yes, shame on me. Oh, along with Alexander Dumas, even The Man in the Iron Mask was a great book. Ah.
Yeah, that's the third Musketeer book.
Hmm.
Actually, it's you have the Three Musketeers, and then 20 years later, and then you have the Man in the Iron Mask,
Yeah.
if I
I'm
remember correctly.
I'm gonna eventually start reading them because, of course, I love the Count of Monte Cristo, and there were the good adaptations of the Three Musketeers that you recommended to me, done in the 70s.
Yeah, 73 and 74, the Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers. In my opinion, overall is the best adaptation.
Hmm.
Um, but there hasn't been a perfect one ever, because every time they do it, they just do the stuff when they have to get the Queen's diamonds and leave it at that. But there's so much more to it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it couldn't be bad with the cast they had, for crying out loud.
Those movies had an amazing cast for its time, because all of them were big names in the 70s. Huge
Hmm.
names. You had Michael York, you had Oliver Reed, Christopher Lee, Charlton Heston, Raquel Welch, Faye Dunaway, Richard Chamberlain, Frank Finley. It was nuts.
Yeah, and they're all fantastic in it. Yeah, talking about Raquel Welch. Oh, yep. Lady T likes the Narnia one. Hmm.
Yeah, the BBC ones. I like it.
Yeah. Yay. Well, there we go. All right. And so, yeah, the Count of Monte Cristo. And one of my pet peeves is most adaptations are too chicken to do the correct ending of it. Only the Richard Chamberlain one did it, where he does not get the girl at the end, because it's more of a statement on what he has become, that it is impossible for them to be together, and that's part of the whole thing, is that because he went on his revenge. I hope that's not a spoiler, but if it
That's
is.
basically the price for that much revenge was his soul,
Mm-hmm.
in a
Exactly.
way.
Yeah, precisely. And so so by him getting together with his original love, it's like, no, he has to pay the price. He cannot have a happy ending. But he kind of does have a happy ending because he stops his soul from being destroyed. And he does, well, read the book. That is a spoiler, some of that part. But if you've read the books, so the movie versions, just be aware that there is none of that, and none of that stupid stuff where he has a real son. Though Jim Caviezel is greatly cast. Oh, this is one of your Steeg. The Terry Brooks.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Genesis of Shannara. I've started rereading that one. It's chronologically the second trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the one before that is the Word and the Void trilogy. This takes place some 70 years, 80 years after.
Okay.
Um, the Word and the Void trilogy and this trilogy is probably Terry Brooks's best work.
Wow. Well, and that says a lot because he's written some really good stuff.
Yeah,
Ironically, sorry.
the original Shannara trilogy, which we covered on your channel, is great as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the Word and the Void trilogy and this one is, I'd say, it's better.
Okay. Well, and it kind of makes sense because he's further into writing. He hones his craft.
Yeah, and it's a more interesting time period. It's about how the world gets destroyed and later becomes the Shannara world.
Mm.
So it's dark as shit at times.
Mm. Yeah. And yes, Arthur Collins, there was one, and there's a reason why no one knows about it, because it was a horrible adaptation that they did.
Yeah, imagine 3,500 years after a nuclear war, you'll
Mhm.
still find old stoves and cars underwater in rivers.
Yeah. And they totally
You know,
changed the locations and
yeah.
it's
It, they basically wanted it to look like Fallout when it's supposed to look more like the Lord of the Rings.
hmm and it just totally ruins so many aspects of it. And again, there's a reason we don't remember it because they could have been printing money if they'd have done it. They would still be making these. I mean, because of all the books that they have, they could have been making these for 10, 20 years. But no. Uh, Wayne says, thanks for showing the Shannara book. I really enjoyed it. He didn't know they continued it. Oh, yeah. Not only continued it, he wrote the crap out of it and
Oh,
just
he has
finished.
finished it too.
Yeah.
A few years ago, he ended the series. He ended it well. I didn't particularly like the last series. I thought it was kind of boring, but he gave us a satisfying ending to it. And uh, this book that you're showcasing and that whole trilogy, basically, and the trilogy before takes place before this sort of Shannara trilogy. So it's prequels, 2
Mm-hmm.
prequel trilogies.
There we
And
are.
there's a duology following this one, and then you have a prequel to the Shannara trilogy, which is called The First King of Shannara. It's about how they make the sword and all that. So basically, there's 9 books before the Sword of Shannara now.
Cool. And interestingly enough, the first book I read by Terry Brooks was the Phantom Menace adaptation, which he did a good job with.
Yeah, Terry Brooks was the guy who came up with Darth Bane
Mm-hmm.
because we're going to have some. George Lucas wanted to have something about the guy who created the Rule of Two for the Sith in it, and they didn't have a name for the character. So Terry Brooks said, "Well, if he's the Bane of the Jedi, why not Darth Bane?" And
Nice.
Lucas said, "Yeah, go with it." So, but yeah, Lucas totally didn't like the expanded universe, right?
Oh yeah, don't even get me started. Yeah, he put them into his movies, but you try to repeat the lie long enough, some people will believe it. Talk about
Yep.
it's a long defeat, but hey, here is something to be very happy about. Anything Conan the Barbarian, and they've had new books. There was a new book that came out that you just said was fantastic, and then there's this amazing new comic series.
Yeah. The new book was called Serpents or something,
Mm-hmm.
which it served as a prequel to the old Robert E. Howard story called Red Nails, which is one of his most famous one.
It's awesome.
So the new novel ends where the old story begins, and the old story was included in the novel, along with a disclaimer that said the language and whatever in the Robert E. Howard story is not what you'd see in a modern story. Basically, warning,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of racist words and stuff. But they said, we're not changing it. It's going to be there as is. And
Yeah.
you guys, the reader just has to realize it was written in the 1920s and deal with it, which was refreshing.
Yes. Well, I've heard the phrase it would be a miracle if someone in the 1920s didn't have some of those. But his racism is not like really how do I say this? It's actually more stereotypes. He's not actually he doesn't use offensive words, but words that you wouldn't use nowadays.
Oh, sometimes in the some of the Solomon Kane ones. Yeah,
Oh, I've not read Solomon Kane. Uh, so okay,
yeah. There was something, and I was like, yeah, this is you'd get canceled today, buddy. Um,
understood.
Racist stereotype galore in one of the stories, but um, I think it's more of a case that he simply didn't know any better. You know, didn't have the internet back then, so your impression of certain parts of the world would be the little things you saw in the news
Hmm.
because you didn't have access to information like you do now. And
Precisely.
and if you got information, you had no way of knowing if it was accurate. But he does have all kinds of female heroes on races or anything. Uh, Basically, he has shit people of all races and heroes of all races.
No, well, you heard it there. I mean, here rather is yeah, and that's I think we address it. Yeah, about race. I think racial rather because there were some of his contemporaries that were racist, but
Oh,
not.
in this case, though, he does have the stereotype of black people with spears and all that. But so that's an old stereotype. But he also describes certain people as ape-like in their movements and
Yeah.
voices, and yeah, he went there.
Okay. Yeah, I have seen the movie Solomon Kane, but I haven't read it. I've just read the Conan. But Red Nails, if you've never read Red Nails, that was posthumously published. It's probably his best Conan story in my humble opinion, and this new one where it was like a prequel to it or leading up, definitely buy it. And Wayne says, "Is there new content coming out for Conan the Barbarian?" Well, we just yeah, absolutely get that book and get
Yeah,
this series from Titan Comics. There's a
yeah,
for some reason there's this attitude out there that there's not good new comics. Oh hell yes there is, and it's not woke. It's completely faithful to Conan the Barbarian, though obviously it's not going to have some some of those things that Robert E. Howard had because it's being written nowadays. But it is bloody. It is blood and guts. I mean, it's very similar to the Savage Sword of Conan. So if you did not know that go get them and go to Titan Comics. You can order them online, and they should be in your local comic store. We're currently on the not episode the comic number 2.
yeah. And this is the Conan the Barbarian comic series that they've
Mm-hmm.
revived, and it's two comics in. Next year, they're reviving the Savage Sword of Conan as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have two Conan series, and I saw yesterday that they're including Solomon Kane in the new Savage Sword of Conan comic. So it's going to be a Solomon Kane story at the back or something.
Hmm.
And if they sell well, they're going to start a new Solomon Kane run as well. In addition to this, though, they have started a prequel comic for the old movie Fire and Ice, which is another sword and sorcery barbarian-ish thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that one is not bad either. You know, in my opinion, I thought it was the first issue was good.
Yeah, I got it too, and I'd never seen it, but with your encouragement, I did. And he says something about Mortal Kombat. Wayne says there's a rumor he might be a guest character in the new game, Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, they do stuff like that with fighting games. They take characters from other IPs and put them in as you can play as Freddy Krueger or whatever, right?
Gotcha.
So it is for promotional reasons.
Okay. And then, yeah, Archer Collins talking about some of the maybe more controversial. Doesn't he imply certain races have undergone a form of devolution, explaining why they are described the way they are?
Um, yes and no. Certain tribes are lagging behind uh, in the Darwin area, like the Picts. The Picts tend to be described as ape-like, and they kind of look like cavemen in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But they're on the west end of the map, though, next to Aquilonia. So the Romans, which are Aquilonians basically, or the Aquilonians are basically Romans. They're having a border war with the Pictish wilderness and all that. Some races are definitely more evolved in the Conan world, which the Stygians, in particular, uh, they're way ahead of the rest. Stygia is basically ancient Egypt, so they're doing well as a civilization. They're pretty damn evil, but they're doing well.
Okay. And let's see, what else did I put on here? Oh, now this is one of mine. Kat Timpf, she's a personality that will be on the Greg Gutfeld show. And I got this with one of my tokens from Audible, and I was actually really pleasantly surprised by it. It's a lot deeper than you would think. She goes into, first of all, her thesis, which I completely agree with, why everything is funny, nothing is sacred, and we're all in this together. She's talking about and against this whole idea you can't joke about that. And she goes a little too far, in my opinion, because she's like everything and everything. And but she makes a good case for it because she said you have to laugh about what is serious because that's partly how you get through the bad times. And she had a horrible, traumatizing things happen to her, and she jokes about them. And she says part of the joking is the healing, is like, and that sometimes you've got to laugh in the face of adversity. So it's
Well,
very interesting to me.
well, she's right though, because if you have something bad hovering over you
Mm-hmm.
and you're not attacking it in any way, you're giving it power over you.
Mm-hmm.
If you laugh at it and joke about it and piss on it and whatever, you are lessening its impact. So it, while it seems probably harsh and almost cruel, doing so, like you said, it's a healing thing as well.
Mm-hmm. Just to give one thing away, she actually has what Will Smith's wife has. So, that's why her hair is the way it is, because, yeah, it's totally fake. And she's like, I joke about being bald all the time, and that my hair extensions and things. And she had a mother die of cancer, and she jokes about that. And she said, but what people don't know is a lot of these jokes were jokes my mother wrote and told me because my mother laughed to the last. So it's it, your thesis, like what you were saying in this, it's very good. And she also addresses that whole thing with Will Smith. It's like goes up and slaps him, and she's like,
You know,
I
when
don't.
Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, though, he proved one thing once and for all.
Uh
You
huh.
know what that is?
I think I know the joke. Go ahead and say it.
Paper beats rock.
Paper beats. Oh yeah, exactly. But the idea is, you know, that he got assaulted over a joke, and I love though Chris Rock's response when he says he starts laughing and he goes, "Oh my gosh, Will Smith just beat the out of me," and and he's even made it a comedy thing. But yeah, so I would highly recommend this book, especially as you go through it. But it's surprisingly moving when she talks about what she's been through.
Will
Now,
Smith left fresh prints on his face.
oh gosh! All right, here we go. You know this one,
Yeah, Asterix.
Asterix. Yeah, you were the one who
One of
recommended
my
this to me.
favorite comic books growing up.
Yep.
And I have almost all of them. They're in Norwegian, though, but I
Mm-hmm.
still have them. Saved them from my parents' attic a decade ago. And a lot of these comic books, they're magazine sized, so they're like each story is about 50 pages or something, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. They have been turned into animated movies, which you can find on YouTube. They were originally in French because it's a French comic, but they have English versions as well. So especially Asterix in Britain is a good one. You can find that one on YouTube. You can watch it for free.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are from the 60s and 70s, and Asterix in Britain, I think, is from the 80s. But I guess they show their age a bit, but I still think they're great.
Yeah, I found them really cute and genuinely funny, especially because they do a lot of historical references and a lot of Latin puns.
Yeah.
and I laughed my butt off, and it is cute. It's kid. I would say it's kid friendly. There's
Oh yeah,
nothing.
definitely. But it's also it, the jokes are more clever and deeper than you'd think.
Hmm. Which is sometimes the best kind of comedy where kids and adults can understand it on different levels. See, oh, Meteor Advocate Timon is a fan. He says the 12 Tasks of Asterix. I'm not.
Yeah, that one's also on YouTube.
Hmm, no. Well, there you go. Yeah, so I highly recommend him. Ah, this is one of yours, Terry Brooks, The Word and the Void.
Yeah, this one is a 10 out of 10. Um, it takes place in a small town in Illinois, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Female protagonist, and then a demon comes to town. And all
Huh.
kinds of secrets are revealed and sinister things, and freaky shit starts happening. And a person who is a knight of the word, which is the word is basically the good guys, almost like the word of God or something.
Hmm.
And it's tied to the Lady of the Lake as well. So, and they're armed with a black staff, which they can use as a magical weapon against demons and stuff. And they are trying to prevent the void, which is basically hell or something, trying to destroy the world. And they've been at it for a while, infiltrating, politics and what have you, and basically trying to cause havoc on a grand scale if they can, right?
Uh huh.
And it involves this girl in Illinois. So one guy shows up to protect her, the demon shows up to do harm. Then the next book takes place a few years later when she's in college, and then the third one, she has moved back to the town again. I think she's 30 in that book, something like that. But yeah, this trilogy is a 10 out of 10 and remarkably prophetic to what we're seeing in the news every day today.
Ooh.
It was like he had a little crystal ball looking into the future when he wrote this. It's when I reread it, I realized this is extremely relevant today.
Wow. Well, I do have these, and I plan to get around to them as soon as I can. That
They're not
sounds.
that long though; they're 300 something pages each.
Yeah.
So you'll read them fast because these were hard to put down.
Well, cool. Yeah. So everyone go out and get that. Ah, now I just put this out here because I'm. This is just Dragonlance in general. This is one of the first ones. There are well, it was the first one. Sorry, and the first from the first trilogy, and it's been going on for 40 years. And Weiss and Hickman just came out with two new ones. That's the second one of a new trilogy is out, and I just adored these books, the ones I've read so far.
Yeah, this is another case of it's not the best written books, but they have a hell of a lot of heart and soul,
Hmm.
and you'll get far with that,
Yeah,
you know.
they're
But
entertaining, and you like the characters.
yeah, and the old Star Wars expanded universe gets a lot of praise for having very good continuity and
Hmm.
everything links up and all that stuff. Dragonlance and the Forgotten Realms did it before,
Hmm.
so they did it, yeah, before the Star Wars EU, and a lot of the Dragonlance writers and Forgotten Realms writers were the ones who helped create the Star Wars EU. So they basically did what they knew worked for Dragonlance and the Forgotten Realms and took it over to Star Wars, and it worked there as well.
Hmm. So if you like the EU, you have Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms to thank for that. Uh, and was it Troy Denning? He actually he wrote some of the Forgotten Realms, didn't he? But he also did his
Oh,
own D
oh
and D
yeah, yeah.
Dark Sun.
Troy Denning came up with. Well, he was one of the lead designers for Dark Sun, which is another world. But he definitely wrote a lot in the Forgotten Realms. I'm not sure if he wrote anything in Dragonlance. I'm not sure, but
I
you have
don't think he did.
other writers that cross over as well, like Elaine Cunningham and Christy Golden, you know, and
Yeah.
and a few others.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the origins of it. Archer Collins, he says Dragonlance started as a homebrew setting by Hickman, I think, which TSR took on.
Yes, Hickman and his wife. His wife never gets credit really, but she was just as involved. But they had Weiss help Hickman try to make novels set in the Dragonlance world. I think that was how it went because Weiss was more of a, I think she was an editor or something, and they just teamed her up with Hickman, and they struck gold, in my opinion.
Yeah, and still are. And I think a lot of the original ones were based on their campaigns that they did.
Yeah,
They
they had
sat and
made
played.
their own. Well, Hickman and his wife had made their own little D&D world, which they took to TSR to try and sell it, or you know because back then you didn't have too many game worlds. You had D&D, but you had like a couple of game worlds. The Grey Hawk, I think, was one. Mistara, that one went away sadly. It was kind of cool. But then the same thing actually happened with the Forgotten Realms. You had Ed Greenwood showing up at TSR with his Forgotten Realms world, and he sold it to them for $500, I think.
Hmm. And of course, yes, Dritz the Dark Elf. It's the best. I think. Well, I think that happened almost accidentally. He was the second person Salvatore was to write a, a,
Yeah,
a Forgotten Realms book, and everyone just fell in love with Dritz. I'm in love with
yeah,
him too.
yeah. It was Douglas Niles wrote the Moonshade trilogy. That was the first. So basically, you had a bunch of writers that were gonna write novels in the Forgotten Realms and flesh out the areas and stuff, because a lot of places were just they were blank. They just had names. So Salvatore just, okay, since Douglas Niles took those islands I wanted to write on, I'll take that little corner up there called Icewind Dale. Don't know what it is, but I'll stay up there,
Hmm.
And he did for 40 years. And the thing is, the main character was going to be Wolfgar, who is a barbarian, young barbarian, because back in the day you had barbarians as heroes, right?
Hmm.
And he was being trained and mentored by Dritz, who was a dark elf. And immediately after the first book, it became damn clear that everyone wanted to know more about Dritz because he ended up being the cool one, and he kind of almost by accident struck gold with a supporting character almost.
Yeah.
So in the second and the third book, Dritz is absolutely the main character. And the first one has more focus on Wolfgar.
Yeah. And of course, there's the prequels, which I've read. I have not read the Icewind Dale trilogy. I read the Dark Elf trilogy, which
Yeah,
he
that one's well, no pun intended. It's darker.
darn very dark, but
Yeah,
very
and
good.
the work he did with the dark elves and the underdark and stuff like that, it was great. He nailed it.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
basically know from that trilogy that you don't mess with the dark elves,
No, and their their beliefs and it's very very dark and matriarchal society.
which they've now retconned completely because of the fourth and fifth edition of D&D.
Yeah, they don't
They
want to have
forced
women
everything.
being evil.
Yeah, well, you still have some evil women, but it's just they retcon the hell out of it, and
Yeah,
because woke,
yeah,
ultra woke.
yeah. They were probably compelled to do so too. That's just the other thing. And
Oh
from
yeah,
what,
not
sorry.
even just compelled. It's a rule. Whenever a new D&D product, and that includes novels, that comes out, they have to use the latest edition, the changes done in the latest editions, for both lore and rules, because they tied. the rules into the lore. So
Hmm.
what happened with the fourth edition was that, yeah, we're going to change everything and make it more like World of Warcraft. So they had like a cataclysmic event
Ugh.
happen, and then they moved it forward like 120 years or something. And all the people who were writing novels were going like, my main character is a human. He won't live for 120 years.
Yeah, I know that the writers were very upset about that.
Yeah,
Um, it's very sad because a lot of these people who wrote these novels and they've been living with these characters for years, they'd created them. Yeah, it's really sad, but definitely the books. I
well,
haven't
that's
heard
not
any.
TSR. That's not TSR though. That's Wizards of the Coast. TSR hasn't had D&D since the 90s.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, sorry.
here's the thing though, which is kind of really sucks. Back in the 90s and 2000s and stuff, you'd have close to 20 Forgotten Realms novels being released every year, right? They were pouring
Yeah.
out and people were buying them left and right. This year, you know how many Forgotten Realms books there are?
Well, one, and didn't he have to lease his own
Yeah.
character?
Yeah, it's one. It's the last book in a Dritz trilogy, which might be the finale to the Dritz franchise too. I think I saw Salvatore thinking it might be,
Yeah.
because he had to lease Dritz, which is his own character from Wizards of the Coast, in order to get to write this new trilogy. They weren't
Yeah.
gonna do anything. He had to team up with was it Tor Books or something? I don't know.
Yeah. He did talk about it, and I can imagine why he would want to say, "Okay, I'm not going to keep doing this if this is what it's going to be." And yet, Archer Collin is saying, "Yes, he knew Wizards of the Coast." And that's what I was thinking because Archer Collin does a whole lot of role playing games. He knows this stuff. It was
Yeah,
a typo. Hey, we're all human. It happens. But
I,
yes,
I can't stress this enough. Wizards of the Coast is a shit company with shit people. I'm not kidding.
it's really a sad situation. But so far, as far as I know, Dragonlance is relatively okay. But even Weiss and Hickman had to do a lawsuit about their latest
Yeah,
book.
I think they had finished the book and then they were forced to add stuff for a
Mhm.
modern audience, something like that. So they basically had to go back and edit the book. Otherwise, Wizards of the Coast would not release it. So they would be stuck with a book
Yeah.
that they had written and weren't allowed to release. It was something like that. You can look it up. It was shitty.
Yeah. Especially
But
to do that to the people that created it. And also didn't they create like a module or some sort of thing without even consulting them?
oh, they were gonna restart Dragonlance as a D&D setting, right? So you could buy Dragonlance D&D books for fifth edition. And Hickman and Weiss found out on Twitter. They hadn't been asked to as consultants, or nobody bothered letting them know. They just found out on Twitter. And the same thing happened with the guy who wrote the Spelljammer
Mhm.
D&D stuff. He also found out on Twitter. They didn't even have the courtesy to let them know. It was not on their radar at all to involve the original creators whatsoever.
Yeah. And
And
very good.
it actually happened with that was it Sea of, it's a pirate game, Sea of Swords or something.
Oh,
It's a multiplayer pirate game. All of a sudden, they have Guybrush Threepwood in it on an
uh,
island where he's the
no.
governor,
No.
and they didn't tell the original creator about that either. That wasn't Wizards of the Coast, though. That was Disney. So he just
Oh,
found out, hey, my character is in this video game, and I wasn't told. But then again,
yeah.
Disney owns them, so they didn't break the law. But it's like, come on.
But it's still crappy. Louise,
I
I
mean,
heard this. Sorry, go ahead.
do a do a text message at least, something.
A courtesy, yeah. But ugh. Louis says, "I think Wizards of the Coast, the reason the D&D film didn't do better because it was actually a fun movie." I actually heard that. I heard the movie wasn't that bad, but yeah, a lot of people are like, "Screw Wizards of the Coast," and didn't see
Yeah.
it. Um,
Imagine
yeah.
if Wizards of the Coast had started doing an animated TV show early on, adapting the Dritz books and the other novels.
Ooh.
They would have struck gold.
Yeah. Talk about printing money. And yeah,
Yeah,
Arthur Cullen makes a good point. Yeah, for a modern audience is the exact opposite of timeless. Yeah, and the reason why the ones that are timeless is because they didn't limit themselves to specific trappings of the current time. They stuck with universal principles. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Well, that is absolutely true. For a modern audience will only be for an audience right now. In
yep.
10 years, that will no longer be for a modern audience. It will be dated. While you have stories like, Lord of the Rings or the original Star Wars that were made to be timeless by design. You know,
Hmm.
Lord of the Rings is still the most popular fantasy book ever written because it was timeless.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's to what Louise was referring, but I haven't seen it, so I can't say. I can just say what I've heard. Yeah. So get the Dragonlance, everyone. So far, it's great, and maybe this will be the last that Weiss and Hickman do with this trilogy. And I'm hoping to maybe get a chance to get to one of their signings because they are legends, and it would be very nice to do that. So stay tuned. What else do I
Yeah,
have here? Oh, sorry.
everything I've seen from Weiss and Hickman is that they're both really nice people.
Mm-hmm.
They're normal. They're not full of shit or full of themselves or anything.
Oh, remember, didn't it was Weiss or Hickman? I forget which one that liked a tweet that Rev Kev did, basically saying about how something that it was a dig that he did, and it might have been about them not consulting them or something. No, they did a
Yeah.
typo. That's what it was. And he was like, "That's what happens when you don't care about the original people or something." And I think it was Hickman that liked his
No, it
tweet.
was
It
Weiss.
was Weiss. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, she's
It,
cool.
it was Wizards of the Coast had done like a promo thing
Hmm.
about Dragonlance, and they had a big typo right on the cover of the book, and he
Uh,
called it out. And yeah, Weiss saw it. It's ridiculous. They couldn't even get the names right. They didn't even bother with the spelling.
Yeah, always makes me wonder about who's editing these things. All right, and then I've been doing a lot of nonfiction because I've always been interested in English royal family. A lot of it started with from being a child, and I went over to London. I was living in Cork, Ireland at the time. Went over to London with the family, and we took a tour of the Tower of London and just all the artifacts and the history. Just really dug into my bones about it. And I majored in history in college as well as focusing especially on the Reformation, Protestant Reformation, and how it developed in England. And my graduate thesis was about how what happened there influenced what happened in America and led to our First Amendment. That's a very big, long explanation of why I like to read about the current royals. I read about the War of the Roses, and all the way back to uh, the
Uh,
the the Saxon days. But
Oh, I'm cutting in rudely.
go
Uh,
ahead.
Wayne and Louise in the chat are talking about D&D movies.
Oh,
Both of you go watch the Mythica movies. They're independent movies with a shitload of heart, and it's basically, well, it's 5 movies, and uh, their love for D&D, it just shines through. It's low on budget, rich on heart,
oh,
and they're way better D&D movies than the actual D&D movies. And a sixth movie was actually funded by Kickstarter, so they're doing that too.
ooh,
That's how they have an audience, a solid audience. And I mean, heck, Lady Gravemaster talks about them all the time. So Mythica,
oh,
fun, family friendly as well, and yeah,
all right.
they
You
did it
heard it
right.
here first. Um, and I want to make this clear because sometimes people are like, "Oh, I hate these people." It's like, well, yes, when you're a historian, you study people you hate too, or you don't like. That's part of it. You don't always just read books about that. And I find I don't take it one way or another about these particular individuals, but these are the last three that I read, and it helps to round out some things. The Wicked Wit of Prince Philip is a little bit of a deceptive title because it does have a lot of his funny things, but it actually analyzes some of his not so funny things. So it is fair and balanced. It's not just something that's just saying he's lionizing him. It's a very balanced book, and Camilla, like it or not, she became the queen consort. So and the whole Diana phenomenon. So I read the latest one by Angela Levin, and then Traitor King. I'll tell you what, because about the he's a king that abdicated to marry the woman he loved, and he was rubbing elbows with Yahtzees, and it's very very disturbing. I mean, we've all known it, we've all seen it that he was sympathetic to that, and Hitler was very disappointed when he abdicated. So Traitor King is also a good one of some. This is what I've been reading with some of my nonfiction. Oh, and before I go into this one, I want to get to some. I think it was Wayne's that asked about the Terry Goodkind. Steve, you have read Terry Goodkind books, haven't you?
Yeah, read the whole series. They're great. They did a TV series that stuck to the book for 3 episodes, and then it was all kinds of other stuff, which is why it got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
They basically did what a lot of fantasy shows do. They stick to the books for a little bit, and then they run off and do their own thing. So it turned more into almost like Xena or something after a while. Not that it was like in isolation terrible, but it would have been big, I think, if they had stuck to the books closely.
Hmm.
And nobody's really stuck to the books in anything except for the Lord of the Rings movies, which stuck fairly close to the novels.
Yeah.
Everything after that has failed. Game of Thrones stuck to the books for 4 seasons, and then it became a train wreck that ended up in season 8, where everything was destroyed before it even got there. But Terry Goodkind's books, yeah, I'd recommend them. Not for kids though. It's um, yeah, they're graphic
Yeah.
in all kinds of ways.
Okay. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that was one of the books that I just picked up for you at the thrift store. One of his
Yeah. Oh,
hardbacks, wasn't it? Was it him?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Archer Collins says, doesn't the Mythica series star Hercules Hunt himself? Yeah, Kevin Sorbo is in it. Plays a wizard.
Huh. Well, there you go. And going back to King Edward, not saying King Edward was a something. Actually, I'm not sure what that word is, but I'm assuming there's a reason. Oh, I see what you're spelling out. But there is a reason he was sent off to be governor of the Bahamas. Yeah, during World War II. Yeah, it's like they shoved him away. It's it's very interesting. But if you are interested in that era, falsely, I think Americans have romanticized what happened with Edward and Wallace Simpson. This will open your eyes a little bit, kids. Yeah, it's not a stereotyping. No, it is not.
No, Cena was great,
Yeah.
especially season 3 and onwards, because it became more of a continuing story.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was excellent, but it's not a good thing if something that isn't Xena ends up being Xena.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like I said, isolated, it wasn't terrible.
Okay. And yes, I see that that was a typo. Yes, I want to put that on a pillow. No disrespect, but Americans marrying Brit royals does not end well. No. But okay, let me rephrase that. Americans that aren't me marrying Brit royals does not end well because that sounds like my dream. It's like, oh, they're all just gonna make me just have people dress me, and I have to go out and cut ribbons, and then I can't go out and be around people. And I'm like, oh dear God, sign me up.
Well,
But,
in the latest case, they're joined at the hip. The problem is that her hips are behind his.
oh dear. Yeah. Oh, and if you've seen what happened just now in Germany over at the Invictus game, Stieg, more than you know. More than you know, it's definitely there. Though, of course, I can't. Well, oh no, wait, I could marry into the royal family, but my spouse would be knocked out of the line of succession. So most people wouldn't want to do that. Yeah, yeah, but I agree with you. Well, and they marry women that don't even give a crap about it, and then they wonder why it doesn't work out. Wayne says, I'm disappointed in myself for the fact that the only fantasy novels I couldn't get into was Jordan's Wheel of Time. I tried several times, but couldn't. Well, to each their own.
Yeah, well, if it's not for you, it's not for you.
Yeah,
Um, I would still recommend you give it another go, though,
yeah. You never
because
know.
it's, well, I am biased because it's one of my favorite book series of all time, probably the favorite.
Hmm. Oh, this is a good nickname. Megan and his wife Harriet.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Pagan Markle, and his wife Harriet.
Yes. Yeah, piece of garbage, both of them. Well, and now this is what I am currently reading because my theme for October, I've been started doing a theme of my horror movies and my books based on a classic. Last year was Dracula. This year it is Frankenstein. So I'm reading Frankenstein right now, and then I'm going to watch a whole bunch of movies associated with it. And the Triple Review will be returning in October. We are going to be reviewing 3 Frankenstein movies: the old black and white one, the one with Kenneth Branagh, and one called Frankenhooker. So if you want to, and then also counted in what I'm going to be reading, or sorry, rather watching, is what did you call it, Steve? Because it went along with our game. The the Lovecraft one that is the Resurrector guy. I forget what that was. Or did I lose him there? Okay. But in any case, Frankenstein. Oh, I did. Okay, yeah, he'll come back. It Regenerator, maybe I forget what it was, but Frankenstein. So I'm reading the original one by Mary Shelley. I finished the first few chapters, and it's much better than I remember it, because I remember trying to read it as a younger person when I was a teenager and going, "Oh my gosh, shoot me now! This is really, really boring and overwritten and bleh." But I'm enjoying it. Reanimator, is that the right one? Okay, thank you, thank you. So that's going to count because I've never seen this movie, but it's similar enough. So while we're going to review those 3, I'm going to be watching a whole bunch of horror movies along with that theme. I don't know. It's good. One of my favorite retellings of how this book came about was it was the drunk history episode where they're all drunk and retelling it and acting it out, and about how this Frankenstein Dr. Frankenstein character does all this. So she retells the novel. And I'll tell you what, from what I know, Mary Shelley and all of them, they were a little bit nuts to begin with. They were libertines, partner swappers, all sorts of weird stuff. So I am enjoying getting back into this book. I actually got some flack from the family because the younger people in my family actually liked it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well then I'll give it another go. Your aunt will give it another try. So the original is going to be read and then watched. And I usually don't start my Halloween stuff until at least fall has fallen. So I've got one more week. But since this is kind of a long book, I went ahead and began it. So, Steve, have you ever read the original Frankenstein, the one with Mary Shelley?
I think so, way back, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it was more of a version for kids.
Ah,
Yeah, a younger audience version. I read a lot of the classics, and in that version though, because or rather that format. I was part of like a book club thing when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Got a book every month. It's usually Oliver Twist or Hunchback of Notre Dame, stuff like that. I think Frankenstein was one of them.
Okay. Yeah. So it was probably definitely kid washed, if you will.
Oh yeah, simplified and probably half the length.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
if a kid reads them as a result, that's probably not a bad thing.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I read a lot of those when I was a kid, those adapted classics. I'm not sure to what you're referring. I don't know who Doctor Who woke is, so but Mary Shelley was not cybered by the Cybermen. Well, no, I mean because it was, from what I understand, it was part of exploring about science and man trying to play God. I don't know. I'll have to see. I am not a literature major or an English teacher, so this is one territory I have only been influenced by media surrounding it, and I'm aware it's not accurate. Definitely not Young Frankenstein. Your favorite movie, Steve? Or did you actually ever see that?
Yeah, the one with Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like it that much and got my head chewed off by Mara.
Yes, because you were wrong. But it's a classic. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up this party. This has been a great discussion. Thank you, everyone that has been in here and your suggestions for books. I've definitely been taking note. And also, I'm hoping some of you have been taking note of it so that you can maybe find some things to read, good stories and old stories alike. And even maybe we've seen some movie suggestions. Oh, you're talking Louise is talking about, I'm not a huge fan of the Penny Dreadful, but their portrayal of Frankenstein was a bit more accurate to the book. Very interesting. Yes. I'm
Yeah,
gonna,
Penny Dreadful is awesome.
yeah. Well, there you have it. Well, Steve, where can we find you? What's going on?
Uh, Next week on Mara's channel, uh, I think we're doing a top ten comic book characters. I think
Hmm.
so. That should be fun. I need to start that list actually. And the week after that, we're doing like kind of like a good and fun news stream, which is also a monthly thing. Um, and I think you and I and Mara might be doing like a pissed off at modern book adaptation something.
Mm-hmm. More specific.
Basically, yeah, we're going to showcase what the crap they're doing with books in order to sell shit TV shows or something.
Yeah, yeah, and most specifically, one of the most egregious ones is the new adaptation of a not even an adaptation of an Agatha Christie book. It's a Poirot movie, and it's called is it A Haunting in Venice? And they're claiming it is an adaptation of the Halloween horror mystery. Oh gosh, I just get so mad. And they've gone so far as to sell new versions of the book, the original book by Agatha Christie, and changing it from the original title to the crap title, A Haunting in Venice. So if you're minding your own business, is it called A Haunting in Venice? I think, I don't know. It's not even the real title, but it's very similar to that. And so if you're going to pick it up, you're going to see, well, first of all, how different it is. Yes, yeah, they're calling it A Haunting in Venice. First of all, it's not even in Venice. It's not got any of these characters. It's not about a haunting. It's not about anything. But the fact that they even changed the title of new versions of the original book, that just brings it to a whole other level. And Halloween Party is probably one of the best and most definitely one of the most disturbing ones. And oh, it's just despicable. I mean, this is just the start of a rant because it's definitely going to be. We've got a lot of rage about this. It's rings of power level of nothing to do with the source material. So that's definitely going to be a rant and rave. And Hercule Poirot, I mean, the greatest detective in the world, one of the probably the most famous, maybe only next to Sherlock Holmes, because Sherlock Holmes has name recognition. But as far as the extensive amount of mysteries and oh, just awful. Yeah, you're right. And so this is a good point that Tommy says they can't leave anything be. At some point, it will be almost impossible to get any kind of media in its original format. Correct. So get them now. Get them now. If you have to go to a half price store or go to a thrift store, go to garage sales, get the originals in their original versions because they are changing
Oh,
them.
another reason to go to thrift stores and half price stores and all that, you will be supporting a local business.
Mm-hmm.
If the more you support them, the less the chance of them going away. Because if thrift stores and stuff goes away, the difficulty in finding original material, I guess, goes sky high. You
Yeah.
only have eBay left.
Yeah. Which is, not dependable, perhaps. Oh dear. Yes. So that's where you're gonna find Stegan. Yeah, and it's gonna be on my channel, so stay tuned
Oh,
for that.
I forgot. Sometimes I'm on with Tommy as well.
Hmm.
When he's doing toy streams and going old school is another one. They're great fun. Fun to be on. At least I like it. So go sub to Tommy and
Yeah,
yeah,
lots of toys.
yeah. He's really good with the. He does these toy presentations where he shows off a new action figure, and it's really good. And if it's shit, and he'll tell you and tell you
There we
why.
go. There we go. Well, so you can always find me here in Miss Martin Muses, where I talk about what makes me laugh, makes me cry, makes me happy, makes me sad, or just really ticks me off. So, upcoming, I do have some more daily musings ready to go. Part of the reason I haven't been doing them is life has happened, but the preparation is all there. So stay tuned. Also, this Thursday night pub crawl is continuing with um, Mrs. Sassy Sasquatch. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So we're going to be doing that, and then more as we continue. But night 2 will be ending soon because realistically, we would all have alcohol poisoning by now if we've been to this many pubs in one night. And the rule is you have to have at least one drink.
Oh, Tommy seems to think eBay is hemorrhoids.
Oh no. Oh no.
I don't know
Uh,
what that's about, but
it's unfortunate. And of course, I'm hoping to get some more videos made. It, it's just life. And I think that's all that's upcoming here. So please, everyone, sub to everyone here. And if you haven't already with me, I'm still trying to get that. I'm mostly monetized and I want to get fully monetized. I would like to. So it's mainly the subs. So if you wouldn't mind subbing or telling your friends about it and tell each other, sub to everyone that you see here. Also, read those books that we suggested. I think that you're going to enjoy it a great deal. So have a great day, everyone. Have a great day and be certain to read good literature.